It's 94.3 WYBC. I'm Darryl Huckaby, and you are now listening to the Electric Drum. Today we have a special guest, Angela Golden Bryant, who has a plethora of accolades. She's an author, a speaker, an actress, as well as the executive producer of a documentary that's being featured here in New Haven at the New Haven Film Festival. It's called Fireburn. Also been selected for the International Black and Diversity Film Festival in Toronto, and most recently won an award for the best documentary as a short at the Chicago Indie Film Festival. How are you today?
I am outstanding. Thank you so much for asking. And how are you? Do people even ask you how you're doing?
Actually, not really, but I appreciate that. I am doing fantastic. I'm excited to be talking to you and to be talking about this film that is going to be featured here in New Haven in May. That film festival will take place in May. But before we get into the film, let's talk about you and your background and how you arrived at where you are today.
Wow.
So talk about your past. You're from St. Croix. I'll put that out there.
Yes. Yeah, I'm from St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands. And I have to reel this in because I could go on and you'll be like, Angela, okay, I didn't mean that much. But, long story.
Let me just say this. That's one of the islands. I've been to many, but that's one I have not been to as yet. So that's on my bucket list.
Yes, you got to go. And the vibe that it has is more of the laid back, more tourists tend to go to St. Thomas. Campers, often will go to St. John. But yeah, you got to go. Yeah. Yes. So I grew up there.
So you were born there, and then eventually, obviously, you came to the U.S. How did that happen?
And actually, I wasn't even born there. My father was born and raised there. And my parents, they met in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. They were both in the Army. So I happened to be born on an Army base out in North Carolina. And then I grew up. I went to, all school. I finished all school on the island of St. Croix. And, as with so many military people who are born in a certain place, it's on your birth certificate, but I don't know anything about North Carolina. I'm going to have to go there and learn about it.
All right. So author, actress,
yes,
speaker.
Yes.
Where did you go to school? College?
Well, I started off at Bradley University. I had a 4-year academic scholarship, and like so many 17, 18, 19-year-olds, I managed to go to 4 years and to use up a 4-year scholarship without getting a degree. So after it was fun. I mean, it was real easy. So I changed majors, changed just all these things. And so at the end of the 4 years, without a degree and without any money, I joined the Navy. And in the Navy, that's when I finished my bachelor's in science, and then I finished my master's of science and psychology from Chaminade University of Honolulu.
Okay.
It's funny how, that has been the story of my life. It's like I have a plan, and in my mind, the plan is like this, but I end up getting there like this,
So how did acting and being an author fall into your repertoire?
Well, for me, growing up, I always wanted to bring a smile to people's faces. I can remember standing in my living room in front of my family with a brush in my hand, pretending to be Aretha Franklin. I'm seeing these smiles on their faces, and I'm thinking, man, I must be jamming. But I could only imagine now why they were smiling. They're probably trying to keep from laughing. But I always wanted to bring a smile to people's faces. So, in elementary school, I was in plays, high school, in the Navy, in college as well. And in 2006, I made it official, and I became a professional actress. And for me, the difference between professional and what I was doing before is I actually started getting paid for acting.
That's always the difference between being a rookie or a novice and becoming a professional. Right. It's the money aspect.
Exactly. Give me some money. Okay. Woo, I'm a professional now. So
what type of acting have you done?
So when I here I'm in Florida, and I'm close to Miami, so that's where a lot of my acting gigs were. So lots of spokesperson commercials and stuff. And so, you know, a lot of us as actors, we will tend to frown on it. It's like, oh, that's not real acting, you know, it's a commercial. But I love commercials. I absolutely love them. They're fun. They're hokey. So in a period of like 4 years or so, I was like in over 100 spokesperson jobs and commercials. And it was getting to the point where people would say, you look familiar, or are you the Office Depot lady? You know, and it's like, yeah, I guess so. So that was fun. One of my more definitely serious was the Magic City. What's his name? Malcolm Jones directed it, and that one was on Lifetime. And so that one was one was like, okay, this is, you know, as actors will say, this is the real thing, you know. But we know that as actors, it's all real. Right. It is all real because we're in front of the camera, and most of us, that's what we love doing, just being in, and whether it's helping someone sell their product, or their story, that's really what the actor is doing. We're entertaining, we're promoting, we're helping to sell, and we're expressing ourselves creatively. Yeah. So
there's always a well, not always, but very few people, I think, are able to make the transition from being in front of the camera to behind the camera. So obviously you have a lot of experience being in front, but now the transition to being behind as the executive producer or director for this documentary, Fishburne, how did that transition happen, and what inspired that?
Yeah, well, you know, it's kind of funny. It all came from that same thing of acting. So it was kind of like a combination. I was in Toastmasters, you know, International Speaking Club, and I needed a story that this chapter was like, the story needed to be emotional. It needed to take the audience on a roller coaster of emotions, and it needed to be true. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm used to making stuff up, but this one has to be true. And then a part of me was like, they won't know if it's true or not. And it's like, no, it has to be true. So I went to this family party, and I'm there sitting with my Aunt Jenny and my late Aunt Gata, and they started talking about the fire burn. And growing up on the island of St. Croix, this is a historical event. It was 1878, and during that time in the U.S. Virgin Islands, the enslaved had already been emancipated. That happened in 1848. But by 1878, they were called laborers. They were being paid, but they were still being abused. It was just horrible. So these women, they rose up and they got this team together. We don't know if it was organized or spontaneous, but they burned down half the island. And it was called a labor riot, a labor revolt. But what happened, Darryl, is that change did come. And so I found out, you know, they're talking about, in the islands, it's not fire burn, it's fire bun. They're talking about the fire bun. The accent. And I found out that my great grandmother, she was actually there. Her parents were fighting, and her job was to take care of her younger brother and sister. And what she did, I mean, the fighting erupted. There were shots going on. It was just chaos. And she took her younger brother and sister over to a nearby ditch, and she covered herself and them with garbage and whatever she could find, leaves and dirt. And they hid in that ditch for hours until the sounds and everything calmed down. But that event is called the fire burn. Wow. It's actually a labor revolt. And from it, change did come to the people of the U.S. Then it was the Danish West Indies, but now it's the U.S. Virgin Islands. Wow. Yeah.
So let's do this. We're talking to Angela Golden Bryant. She's the executive producer for the documentary. And again, it's being featured here in New Haven this May at the film festival. Let me play. I have a clip. I didn't tell you this, but I want to play a trailer from it, and then we can come back on the other side, okay?
All right.
One of the key things with learning about the fire burn is knowing about the resilience and the strength of the ancestors of this space that we call St. Croix.
We have to go to court to have the VA history being taught in our school. People without a knowledge of itself is like a tree without its root.
Who these people were? What gave them that fire? What was said to them from their ancestors that made them still want to stand strong and says, I'm gonna fight no matter what?
They were freed in 1848 by their own accord. And by 1878, they were still enslaved in a condition tied to the plantation system that is defined as serfdom. Very similar to also Europeans, but they're serfs and they're black.
There was anger, there was rightful indignation, and there was rage, but it was very directed. Throughout the West African region, you find the tradition of queens in the villages. The queens would be those women that were revered for their leadership role.
There were a bunch of young ladies, young women that decided that they were going to take things into their own hands.
They burned down the factories. They burned down the way that the money was made.
It was a selfless act. They knew the consequences of doing this.
It's a revolution. She is responding to you. It is the end. We have had it. It is time for an action call.
Wow.
Wow, I'm getting emotional.
So again, that was the trailer to the documentary called Fireburn. It's being featured in May at the New Haven Film Festival. We are talking to Angela Golden Bryan, who is the executive producer. In hearing that, you know, you hear about the women, and it's always women are the driving force, whether it be a political initiative or a personal initiative, or even within the world of entertainment. Women getting together can always impact the situation, and it seems like that's what happened back then when it came to, you know, the human rights violations that were taking place in St. Croix.
Absolutely. I wonder if it's somehow connects to that maternal instinct of we're gonna fight, that mother bear rising up to protect that which is our clan, our family. You know, don't mess with us. You know, I don't know. You know, but you know, there's that correlation. You know, and this is male. It's going to happen with everyone, but we all bring so much. You know, male, female. You know,
Right.
family, everyone. We bring so much to it. Mm-hmm.
Now, you know, I'm not from St. Croix, and I've never heard of Fishburn or Fireburn before. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Is that a story that is told as part of the heritage of St. Croix, or is it something that you're bringing to light more through this documentary? Is that one of the things that inspired you to do the documentary?
Yeah, and I'll say yes and yes. It is taught. It is taught, and usually October 1st is the day that the fire burn happened back in 1878, and oftentimes there are commemorations of the event. When I was in high school, I had a Caribbean history book, and I think there was like a chapter or two, or maybe even as much as a page on the fire burn, and so. At this point, I'm hearing a lot of the educators and politicians saying we need to know even more about it. Right. And part of the challenge of what happened is that during that time, the islands belonged to Denmark, and in 1917, the United States purchased the Virgin Islands from Denmark, and when Denmark left, they took the archives with them. Oh. And so even though the archives are public, they're public domain, they're written in Danish. And so should any of us go to Denmark, and when I say us, I say people who have an interest in it. And if you don't speak Danish, it's really challenging. So a lot of what we've heard over the years were definitely folklore. And I would venture to say that on their end, even though they have the archives, a lot of it may be folklore as well, because during the interviewing process, I heard a very different story from a man who was from Denmark compared to what the Virgin Islanders were saying. And the stories were like
the natives, yeah.
Just a completely different. I mean, they weren't even. I was going to say, like, they weren't even on the same coin. You know how one there's the head and the tail. They weren't even on the same.
Right.
The stories were so different. Yeah.
It's interesting how, you know, the perspective can be different depending on your view. and,
Yeah.
and you know, where you're looking at it from, because if
Yes.
you're in it versus, you know, looking at it somewhat from the outside looking in, there's always going to be a difference in, you know, the interpretation of what happened in any given situation.
Absolutely. And that was one of the things when I heard that story, I was like, oh, wow, I am so happy, so thrilled that now we have the story in the words and the voice of Virgin Islanders, people who have also looked at the archives, people who have gone to the other islands, and they have studied. And it was so refreshing to be able to have that in a documentary. I'm thrilled. And a lot of my motivation for it was my book, Fireburn, the screenplay. You can see the Fireburn, the screenplay. I took a lot of creative license in it, and I created love triangles and the excitement and who stands opposed to the queens and everything. And one of the criticisms that I received from an expert in the Fireburn was that I disrespected the history of the Virgin Islands and that I lied. And I the point that I made is like, well, you understand what fiction is. This is historical fiction. But it really weighed on me, Darryl. It really did. And I said, well, how can I rectify this? And it was like a documentary. Now give people an opportunity without the fiction to say what happened. And so it was an opportunity for me to bring the truth forward instead of creating a fictitious account of something that had already happened.
Okay. Again, we're talking to Angela Golden Bryan. She's the executive producer for the documentary Fishburne. Again, it's coming to New Haven at the film festival in May. Now, this is your first documentary, your first movie. Now that you have a taste of the water, any plans for any future projects when it comes to being behind the scenes versus in front of the camera?
Wow, you know, that's so funny, that question. What it reminds me of is being pregnant and having a baby, and you're in the delivery room and someone is like, you're gonna have another baby? I'm like, no, that's how it was, because it has been the process has been wild. Yeah. There's been much joy. There's been lots of pain. There's been the wait, the COVID put things back. But now that the project has been birthed, it's like, I want to do this again. Yes. You know, whereas before, you know, one of my producers, co-producers, Marjorie Tingle, she's like, Angela, we got to do this. And it's like, back off. No, this is not happening again. But now I'm like, So yeah, we do have a couple of projects that I'm working on. She's working on. Yeah, so maybe I can come back and share those with you one day. You know, get them get them, you know, connected to, you know, your area.
Absolutely.
And, yeah.
Now, how did this get picked up by the New Haven Film Festival?
Well, you know what? As we were looking at film festivals, I wanted to be strategic. I didn't want to just put it out there just because. And when I looked at what the New Haven Film Festival was looking for, they said that they wanted innovative, they wanted thought-provoking, they wanted creative, and they had a category for Black Lives Matter, American history, and social justice. I'm like, oh, if this isn't a fit for that, I don't know what is. And so that's how I heard about it. And it's funny, my director, Joel Finderman, he lives close in the area. He's in New York, but he's, you know, he's fairly close. He's not here in Florida right now. And he says, how did you even hear about them? And I said the same thing. I was like, you know, I'm looking, I'm doing my work. It's like, this is for us. This is our people here, you know, people who want to hear things that aren't going to necessarily be comfortable, because it's not a comfortable story. It's not.
Well, those types of stories never are.
Right.
You know, when you're digging into history like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, anything dealing with human rights, which typically affects, you know, the Black and brown community. It's never uncomfortable. So, so glad that you were selected. And again, we're talking to Angela Golden Bryan. She's the executive producer for the documentary. Let's see, the contact information for you and the documentary and any other projects that you have. You want to share that with us? Sure. It's Angela Golden Bryan, name on the screen.com. And they can go ahead, click on the contact. You know, I'm really good. We're really good. And we'll get back to you. Absolutely. Yes. And then
Then,
fishburndocumentary.com for the documentary.
Fireburn,
I mean, Fireburn. I keep saying Fishburn. I got a mental block for some reason.
I'm going to have to investigate that. There might be a story there, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know what? As a side, you know, growing up in Connecticut, I used to fish a lot.
Okay.
That's in my blood. So I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with it.
And was it? Oops. Oh, who's that? Oh, no. Oh, my gosh.
Don't worry about it. It happens all the time.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Can you see me anymore?
I can still see you. I can still hear you as well.
Okay. I don't see you anymore, but as long as you can see me. My phone is off, but my phone on my laptop is not off. I apologize.
That's okay. We're still connected, both audio and visual, so we're good.
Okay. Well, I'll keep on, Darryl, even though I can't see you. I'm going to keep on.
Okay. So again, and we don't know with COVID-19, obviously that's affected a lot of our normalcies over the last year in terms of, you know, how the film festival is going to be presented in May. But you'll be sure to keep us abreast of that, and I'll follow you and stay connected as well.
Yes. And of course, we have the website, fireburndocumentary.com, and we will be updating it, but social media will be the faster way because we can update that in real time, whereas it may take a little while longer to get the website updated. Okay. So we have on Instagram, we have Fireburn Documentary. We're trying to keep it consistent, Fireburn Documentary. We also have Angela Golden Bryan, you know, so those are the handles. And if people are Facebook people, it's Fireburn, everything Fireburn on Facebook, as well as Angela Golden Bryan. So those are some ways that you can stay tuned for future viewing opportunities. You know, if you're in Connecticut, by all means, and it's available, I hope you can go to the New Haven Film Festival and check it out, and and be in the audience, and give us some hand claps if it resonates with you. That would be
absolutely
awesome.
Well, definitely when you come up, we'll have to connect while you're here, and
yes,
with your future projects. Let's stay connected and share that with our audience as well.
Yeah.
So again, talking to Angela Golden Bryan, executive producer for Fireburn, the documentary, selected for the New Haven International Film Festival. Again, that's happening this May. Also selected for the International Black and Diversity Film Festival in Toronto, and you've already won an award for the best documentary short recently in the Chicago Indie Film Festival. So congratulations on what's happening right now, and then all of your future success as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm super excited to see what the future holds.
Absolutely. Well, it's great talking to you. And if you don't mind, send some of that warm weather up north for me.
Okay, here you go.
All right. Angela Golden Bryan, Fireburn, the documentary. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Darryl Huckaby, and you are listening to The Electric Drum on the Rhythm of the City, 94.3 WYBC.